Hello, you are watching the Supply Chain Digital Show brought to you by Supply Chain Digital Magazine, Procurement Magazine, and BizClick Media Group. My name is Sean Ashcroft. I'm Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Digital. And in this show, we bring you all the latest news, analysis, and insights and opinions from the world of supply chain and procurement every 2 weeks, right here on LinkedIn, YouTube, and other digital platforms. Joining us, as usual, is Procurement Magazine editor, Georgia Wilson. Hello, Georgia. How are you?
Hi, Sean. Good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Now, just a quick reminder for all of you watching at this point, please do say hello to us by posting in the comments section just below the broadcast area. And also do vote on our LinkedIn poll, which I believe is still live. On which note, Georgia, what's our poll about this week?
Yeah, so this week's one is about how can businesses best mitigate against inflation in the supply chain. So the different options were source new suppliers, increase end-to-end visibility, or strengthen supplier relations. So what do you think? What are you thinking on the poll for this week, Sean?
Well, I guess in some ways businesses might do a combination of those things, but if they were to pick one, I'm guessing it wouldn't be source new suppliers, at least not for long term, because I think that's more of a short term stopgap measure. So I think it will probably be between increasing visibility and strengthening supplier relations, but we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll be sharing the results of that poll at the end of the show, but there's lots to talk about before then. So shall we start by taking a look at the latest supply chain and procurement news? So Sean, did you wanna kickstart the news?
Yeah, by all means, Georgia. So first news story I'd like to look at is a piece I did on the Uyghur Forced Labour Protection Act that's been passed in the US. This is designed to stop imports from China that have involved forced labour, crossing US borders, particularly the Uyghur Muslim minority population there, which, thousands of whom live in internment camps and work, under forced labor conditions. And Xinjiang province in the north of China produces a vast amount of cotton, coal, sugar, tomatoes, and polysilicon used in the creation of microchips. And workers as well work in the clothing, fashion, footwear industries. Now, this new act bans all imports from Xinjiang province in China, and the penalties for violating this new law are pretty stiff, actually. There could involve civil or criminal penalties, or both. Goods can be seized. But in many ways, the biggest sort of damage that transgression of this law, will result in is reputational damage. Because if a company is seen to be using forced Uyghur labor, then that's catastrophically bad news for their brand. Now, a few multinational brands have lobbied against this bill, among them Apple, Nike, Coca-Cola. Make of that what you will. They say that it's really difficult for any business with an embedded presence in China to prove that it isn't using, forced labor, because, China is so opaque and it doesn't make data readily available, and they feel that it could impact negatively on supply chains generally. Anything made in China could be impacted by this bill, but that remains to be seen. And the second story, briefly, is a piece on the cybersecurity threats that are facing smart factories. This is based on a report written by the multinational consulting firm Capgemini. and Capgemini are saying that Industry 4 techs like AI and machine learning, while fantastic in so many regards, with regard to productivity and efficiency and visibility, also have the potential to open up factories to cyber attack. And their report revealed the quite worrying fact that manufacturing has now overtaken financial services as the most attacked sector. 40% of organizations, even more worrying, say that cyber security is not a C-level concern. So it's not a concern at board level. Clearly, it should be. So that is going to have to change, or smart factories and supply chains in general will remain vulnerable to cyber attack. Part of the problem is that cybersecurity employees in companies just don't have the level of training that's needed. And another problem is that a lot of these cyber vulnerabilities are due to people, staff, bringing in their own infected devices and putting software patches, on existing digital solutions. So it's a big problem, and I don't think it's one that's going to go away anytime soon. Now, actually, before I move on to you, Georgia, and your picks from Procurement Magazine, we've just got one piece I'd like to go through from a companion title of both Supply Chain Digital and Procurement magazines, and that's Business Chief, which is it's a magazine, online digital magazine that's pitched at C-suite leaders across the world and across all sectors. Now, as part of this, we, Business Chief, interviewed Daniel Weiser, who's global leader of Boston Consulting Group's procurement business line. And Daniel has co-authored a book called Profit from the Source. And it is about why organizations, especially larger organizations, need to put procurement at the heart of their business. And he says, and his colleagues say in the book, that too often procurement is marginalized by C-suite executives, when really they should be center stage, because half of any organization's typical budget, for example, comes out of procurement. And also procurement is just such a rich source of competitive advantage, because they're in contact with and have strong relationships with thousands of suppliers. So that's the Business Consulting Group's sort of message from that book. So that's a neat segue onto procurement, Georgia. So what are a couple of your picks from the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, so my first one is an article where I was looking at some new research produced by business spend management organisation Cooper Software. So according to the research they produced, today's economic volatility coupled with inadequate financial systems and processes are holding back organisations from actually growing. So a key sort of statistic from the research was that 72% of high growth organizations are recognizing that their financial processes are just not robust enough or scalable enough to support the growth plans that they have in mind. So sort of despite the time being now for digitalization, for many organizations to sort of combat these disruptions and what have you, manual processes and siloed data are still holding many companies back, particularly when it comes to procurement and supply management, invoicing and payments.
You see this all the time, don't you, with digital services companies. There's thousands of them out there, but time and again you hear that companies are struggling to put these digital transformations in place, and quite often they stall or they just not seen through to completion.
Yeah, definitely. There's such I think, a vast sort of array of different solutions out there. It can sometimes be hard to actually pinpoint the right ones that will have the most impact and effective impact within the organisation.
Yeah, that's right. And what's your second pick, Georgia?
Yeah, so my second one was looking at another ongoing challenge for procurement functions and that's sustainability. So, according to SAP, data will be critical as a driving force to create end-to-end transparency of emissions information from business partners. But SAP also highlighted that if organisations are to, meet their net zero targets and their greenhouse gas emissions targets, then they need to be working now to reduce their emissions by more than 50% by 2030 in order to sort of set a responsible pathway. However, there's constant challenges with reporting on emissions, particularly when it comes to scope 3. 98% of total GHG emissions are come from scope 3 in the automotive industry alone. This is going to be a metric that organisations will need to sort of quickly get their head around, in order to meet the growing sort of sustainability and regulatory requirements. Also, the report they made highlighted that collaboration will be sort of crucial to do that. Again, that sort of brings it back to those suppliers and partnerships. In doing so, organisations will sort of be able to drive more transparent processes and common data standards across the value chain.
Yeah, 2030 isn't actually that long away, is it? The pressure's really on them, companies now, to make serious headway on sustainability, particularly with regard to scope 3. So it'll be interesting to see where they are, like maybe a year or 18 months down the line. Well, thanks for that, Georgia. Now, in October, we have a big date in the diary. It's the Procurement and Supply Chain Live London show. It's a hybrid event with both live and remote audiences, but with a slight difference, because we're splitting the show into 2 zones. So we're going to have Supply Chain Live and Procurement Live. We're going to create a single expo style experience for our showgoers. Now, if you've not experienced a BizClick Media Group show, then you really are missing out, because they attract, a stellar lineup of top industry professionals offering insight and commentary on the issues of the day and the problems and challenges facing companies across supply chain, procurement, logistics, sustainability, ESG. Now, typical of the caliber of speakers that we attract to these events is Frank Sudan, who is SAP's head of digital supply chain for EMEA North. So we were just talking about SAP there earlier, Georgia. But to give you a flavour of Frank's insight, here's a little clip of an interview I conducted with him at the last Procurement and Supply Chain show back in April.
Good morning, my name is Frank Sudan. I'm at SAP in charge of supply chain, advising our customers on their journey to become a resilient company.
Now, today, Frank, you were talking about how to build a resilient supply chain through the process of digitalization. But can I ask you, what does a resilient supply chain actually look like?
Okay. So actually, to answer your question, I would like to go back a bit in time. What we have seen over, let's say, the course of the last 20 years is that supply chains have always been considered as a necessarily evil, to use that word, an area of the business where a company has to invest in because it is there. It is a necessity, it is a transactional system where companies had to invest, but always with one main focus, reducing costs. As a result, actually we have created unbelievable complex supply chains. It is crazy if you imagine how complex this environment end-to-end has become. Now, what has happened over the last 2 years, the events that started with the pandemic and unfortunately are continuing on a different scale and different level, is how fragile these systems are. Suddenly, C-level executives have realized that actually to survive all of these crises, you need to become resilient. You need to be able to adjust, to adapt to uncertainties, to crises. And it has even gone a step further, meaning companies, C-level executives, starting with the CEO, have realized that it can become a strategic differentiator, that it could be even a competitive advantage to invest in supply chain.
Frank Sudan, SAP, thank you very much.
I promise you that was me, even though you could only see my arm.
Well, certainly some very interesting insights from Frank there, and definitely going to be, there's going to be lots more of that at the next event. So just to remind people, the Procurement and Supply Chain Live London 2022 is going to be held at London's QE2 Centre from the 12th to the 13th of October. So if you want to book tickets, please do take a look in the comment section where you'll find a link that you can follow. And now on to a quick ad break, so don't go away.
The world has changed in ways we could not imagine 3-4 years ago, and with that change, technology priorities changed. I'm Kenny Graham, CEO of Tomorrow Street. Tomorrow Street's a joint venture between Vodafone Group through the Vodafone Procurement Company based here in Luxembourg and the Luxembourg government through Technoport. Our focus is on partnering with young, innovative companies, scale-ups, with innovative tech that we can scale across the globe. We have a really, really exciting year, 18 months ahead. First of all, with the companies that we partner with already today, we have some really exciting opportunities that we're pursuing with them and supporting them on in their journey in Vodafone. Secondly, we're really fortunate we have built up a really fantastic pipeline of scale-ups that we are interested to work with. So I'm really excited about bringing those new companies on board and helping them in their journey across Vodafone. And then finally, we have the Arch Summit at the end of October, which we're super excited about. It's purpose-focused, digital society, planet, inclusion.
When I look in this room, I see a room full of innovative, energetic minds. I believe
the Arch Summit is a technology event. What it looks to bring together is the corporate world with the scale-up and startup ecosystems. We established the event in 2018 really because we saw an opportunity to bridge the gap between these two ecosystems. My name is Reece Shigo Astaroli. I'm the Arch Summit lead for the Technology Summit that we'll be hosting this year in October. In 2019, we had over 5,000 people over the course of 2 days. 40% of those were either entrepreneurs or senior leaders. We also were able to connect through 1,500 one-on-one meetings, different people to discuss technology. We had people from 70 different countries represented here in Luxembourg, and I think that's really reflective of the kaleidoscope of people that exist within the technology and innovation landscape. So we're really excited to bring scale-ups and startups to Luxembourg this year with the opportunity of meeting some of Vodafone's senior executives from across the globe in our markets to really come together and have a conversation on technology and what the power of opportunity looks like in 2022.
We've got some great speakers with a global outlook and global impact. And we'll have 80 corporate partners here. We'll have 100 plus scale-ups. A lot of people are really excited to get back together again at Arch, so a lot to look forward to.
Welcome back. I actually went out to Luxembourg to interview Tomorrow Street a month or so back. They're a really fascinating company. and probably the coolest officers I've ever seen as well. But anyway, still to come, we have the results of our LinkedIn poll, and we'll be taking a look at the latest issue of Supply Chain Digital and Procurement Magazine. But first, why don't we just have a little look in the comments section and see who's joining us. So we have Polyvios, who's joining us from Greece, and Raghu, who's, it doesn't say where he's joining us from actually, but hello Raghu, hello Polyvios. And we have Sandro from Brazil, and Apichat from Thailand, and Amar from India, and Valentina from Indonesia. So as usual, people from right across the globe reflecting our audience and reflecting supply chain and procurement itself. What's coming up next, Georgia?
Yeah, so next we're going to take a look at some of our magazine features. Sean, did you want to start with your latest picks?
Yeah, sure. So let me see. Yeah, this week I'm going to take a look at an interview we did with the Chief Global Supply Chain Officer of McDonald's. She's called Francesca Di Biase. And I mean, her job is just unimaginably huge. If you think just the scale of the McDonald's operation itself, I mean, they have, 31,000 restaurants around the world. Every year they source around 3.4 billion pounds of potatoes and 1.9 billion pounds of beef. So, being Chief Supply Chain Officer of McDonald's is just a colossal undertaking. But De Biase isn't just the Chief Supply Chain Officer. She's also their Chief Sustainability Officer. So she's one of the very few, top 5 or Fortune 500 executives to hold the double positions. And so little wonder that she came second in our top 100 women in supply chain publication, which, by the way, you can view on Supply Chain Digital's website. But Francesca De Biase is involved in trying to make McDonald's a sustainable company, particularly in regards to the way it sources its beef, and it's running she's overseeing a sustainable beef farming pilot in Canada. That if successful, the company will roll out across the globe to source all its beef. And my second pick is actually a video I've chosen that is related to our cover feature that's exploring Santander's UK's really super ambitious transformation program that's designed to service the bank's digital banking needs of its customers. So let's just take a quick look at that.
So it's all about trying to create the right supply partners, delivering the right services for what we need to deliver our future strategy. I'm Nick Jenkinson. I'm the CPO at Santander UK. We're going through currently a major transformation program. In terms of the key challenges, we're trying to do everything all in one go, which is a huge challenge that I create for people. We're really undertaking open heart surgery, so all of our technologies, processes and people, a full operating model change that I think can deliver great things. Partnerships are critical for development of our new operating model. And ultimately, as an organisation, we're going through a business-wide transformation. So the ecosystem we need moving forward is very different to what we've needed historically. So the next 12 to 18 months in Santander procurement look very busy for starters. We're right in the middle of our transformation. We've announced the new operating model, and now it's all about driving and embedding the organisation, embedding the processes and embedding new technologies within the organisation. Ultimately, to leave a legacy of something that I'm proud to leave behind.
Oh, welcome back. So, Georgia, what would you like to share with us from the latest issue of Procurement Magazine?
Yeah, so this week I wanted to take a look at a recent feature where I spoke with SAP's Astocia Thurman and Ivalua's Alex Sarek. So I spoke to them both to understand what is sort of driving the rise in digitalization in both source to pay and procure to pay software. So in the feature, we sort of discussed the value that can be gained in the procurement function by implementing a digital solution for these functions. Some of the many benefits included streamlined processes, improved efficiency, more effective negotiations, cost reductions, and enhance both the customer experience and employee satisfaction. So there's a lot of different benefits and a lot of the key sort of themes that we're experiencing that have been cropping up over the last 2 years. So we also looked at the drivers for the rise in digitalization, such as the need for greater visibility, transparency, and effective risk mitigation methods. Again, key themes that we've been seeing emerge over the last couple of years. A sort of key comment that I picked out from Thurman was that the case for digitalization has been there for a long time, but particularly in the last 2 years, it has ramped up the need to remove manual processes and drive both greater visibility and simplicity. These are the benefits that come from digitalization.
So it kind of, in some ways, references the story you were chatting about earlier, doesn't it, Georgia? And it also seems like it's impossible to mention procurement without talking about SAP. Such definitely. A massive player in that market, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of sort of the historically procurement has been quite a manual process for quite a while. So digitalization, sustainability, suppliers, visibility, they all seem to be the key sort of trends that are emerging in procurement at the moment.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you what, it's probably time to move on now. So why don't we take a look at the results of the poll? So, Georgia, maybe you could just remind us of what the poll question was.
Yeah, so the poll was, how can businesses best mitigate against inflation in the supply chain?
And let's just take a quick look at the results. So actually I was on the money there, because I'll do it in ascending order. So only 12% said sourcing new suppliers was a way to sort of mitigate against inflation. Well, long term anyway. Short term, it could probably work for you, but I don't think it's sustainable because, onboarding new suppliers in itself can be a tortuous, drawn out process. And strengthening supplier relations, 40% plump for that. But top of the pile was increase end-to-end visibility, which is, it just goes back to, what we've been talking about earlier on, digital transformation, using Industry 4 tech. That is the future. We all know it's the future, and it's not just a way to mitigate against inflation. It just seems to be a way to mitigate against everything that, the modern world can throw at businesses. I don't know what you were expecting from these results, Georgia.
Yeah, definitely. I was like you. It's hard. It's going to be a hard one to call. Like there's a couple that you think, yeah, they would maybe work, be done in together alongside each other. Like you say, sourcing new suppliers is perhaps good short term, but again, you said that large, that lengthy onboarding process can sometimes outweigh sort of strengthening the relationships that you already have. But yeah, this episode has certainly been visibility and digitalization and suppliers has certainly been a key theme for this week.
Yeah, and it will continue to be, I think.
Yeah.
Well, folks, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for this episode. Hope you've enjoyed it. We certainly have. Thank you for interacting with us, for watching live, and for taking part in the poll. And do remember that this show is also available to watch on demand. So please share it with anybody you know who is interested in supply chain and procurement. So a big thank you as ever to Georgia and also to Ernie and the rest of the video production team. Thank you too to Justin and the design team for the fabulous looking magazines, and to Kaylee and the marketing team. This has been a BizClick Media Group production. We will see you next time.